we're back to the Dungeons and Dragons Boomer guy. He's just, there's something about him. He's a particular kind of whiny. So this is the D&D Boomer. He is a guy who sucks. He just sucks every time. D&D is now awful! 7 reasons this game is better. Is it something that you have financial incentive to want or something? Also, I'm thinking about the MCDM RPG for the next time around. But as you can see, I have lots of D&D stuff. You don't need to see that. The PHB just got. I like to stay on the old page 150 or thereabouts. It's really handy to know that page 149 of the PHB or 150 on PDF or 150 here is such a handy spot to be able to go to when you're in any town ever. D&D has its flaws, but did you know that, first of all, you don't have to buy any of the products. You can just get them. You know what I'm saying? Second of all, it all happens in your mind. Change the rules you don't like. If you want you just can't stand any woke stuff, well, man, don't put woke stuff in it. You know? You can be inventive. You can be a creative guy. You could sail the high seas and not purchase another Wizards item ever again, and I don't give a shit. Just play the game you want to play, man. It's weird that you whine about this all the time.
An option for you. I might have an option for you.
I love this place!
Well, hello there.
I might have an option for you. That started quick.
I hope you guys are all doing well today. Wizards of the Coast, in a long series of missteps, may have, stepped in it again. This time it looks like they're updating everyone's rules information on D&D Beyond to their new edition of the game.
They were going to do this, and then they stopped doing it, which is a very good move. It actually might be in my D&D server. This tweet right here. Wow. Great work, Twitter. Last week we released a changelog detailing... Hey, doodle-doo. I'm talking here. I'm just kidding. Thank you for the 21 months. Last week we released a changelog detailing how players would experience the 2024 core rulebooks in D&D Beyond. We heard your feedback loud and clear. Thank you for speaking up. Players who only have access to the 2024 Players Handbook will maintain their character options, spells, and magical items. Anyway, so what was happening is it's been 10 years since the PHB came out. This document right here, not this one. This one right here. The Player's Handbook, the PHB. Anyway, in D&D Beyond, which is it's like your digital character sheet and also your books and stuff, which I don't use, but some of my players do. They were automatically switching everything over to the 2024 PHB, which I guess if you play D&D, it might be obvious. I mean, if you have a game that's been playing since you started the 2014 PHB, which everybody did because they just started the 2024 PHB, obviously, right? Then it would erase your old character and replace it with the new PHB stuff, which did suck, but they immediately changed that. So, I don't really care about Wizards or like them, by the way. I don't give a shit. Don't buy their stuff. I agree.
Whether you're updating to that edition or not, many of us have tried telling you that this company does not care about you. They hate
Pathfinder's so crunchy and unbalanced. Paizo makes cool stuff, but it's not good for game design, in my opinion. D&D, Wizards makes closer game design decisions. I'm looking forward to Matt Colville's MCDM RPG project, and hoping that has more tight situation. I'm always looking to refine and tweak the systems anyway, and I homebrew a lot of the stuff. But
hate their core fan base, and they are going all in on a digital future, banking on microtransactions, much like the hated Madden football franchise. Now, if you've had enough and are willing to switch, there's lots of good options out there. Some I have talked about at length before, but I have so far not talked about the game that my group actually switched to when we had finally had enough of 5th edition. And that game is Castles and Crusades by Troll Lord Games. This game may be the 5e alternative that frustrated DMs and bored players may be searching for. The reason I didn't want to pump out a video immediately after we switched was because I wanted to get some practical experience behind the screen before I opined on it.
I haven't tried 2nd edition Pathfinder. Pathfinder 1. I mean, it's just got so many little fucking things. I haven't tried Pathfinder 2. I'm too deep into the 5th edition campaign we're running now to switch, though.
Now that I have over a year in the DM's chair...
Yeah, it was 3.5. It was basically 3.5. They had a little 4E in it, though. They had a little bit of 4E in it. Pathfinder, it's whatever.
With this game, I can tell you the 7 things that I like about it.
I don't like the character
Plus
sheets
one
for Pathfinder
thing
either.
I would and did change in it. So without further ado, let's get started.
This guy has no fucking charisma. God.
Well, the first thing I love about Castles and Crusades, which
Sped him up.
you'll hear me shorten to CNC at times, by the way, actually comes...
CNC. You're going to shorten this to CNC? Okay.
From my wife, Mrs. D. Now, Mrs. D has been playing in my now over 29-year-old Birthright campaign since the very beginning. And she likes the scaled-down feel of CNC. To her, and I suspect many others, the game just feels a little bit more personal without the excess power bloat that 5e kind of forces on you. You kind of go from mile high in 5e to ground level in Castles and Crusades, and that's actually not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Fighters should be the ones fighting. Magic users should be way in the back, and thieves should be darting in and out of combat instead of standing toe-to-toe on the front lines.
The art you picked for that was so basic, bitch. It's fine if you want to play whatever game you want to play. I don't have any opinions about Castles and Crusades. I would suspect that Castles and Crusades is specifically something that is not woke, that he doesn't like, and people on his not woke list that you can play. I don't know. They're probably problematic in some way. Play the game you want to play. I don't care. If you can fucking make any class fit any rule, if you're creative. I mean, you don't have to use any you don't have to play D&D 5th edition as a system to play D&D or whatever. You know what I mean? It is what it is. If you want to play this, I like the idea of a lower powered D&D game. Personally, I like that. I like that kind of stuff. I don't like to feel overpowered. Although I don't think in 5th edition. I'm a pretty good DM, I think, so it feels pretty balanced.
Which they often do in 5th edition. If you aren't smart, your party could be in for a very bad day. But I also don't think that this game is out to get the PCs. There are tactics that can be used in combat in CNC for advantages, and you're able to disengage from combat without being locked into a death struggle. In our game, one PC, my buddy Crazy Mouse's thief Linus, succumbed to a very powerful creature early on. But even he would probably tell you that it was, in addition to some bad luck, also a failure in group tactics. In one of our most recent sessions,
This is boring, man.
Party's monk was unlucky enough to get 2 criticals hit on him from an aboleth's tentacles, and he had...
Dude, are you telling a story?
...to make, actually, a death save, which fortunately...
You're the DM? You can't make this sound like it was fun?
He passed. But it seems each combat that I've run has at least a baseline of danger to it. Some of them, due to bad rolls on my part, were a lot easier for the party, and some, quite frankly, a lot tougher. But there's no more 5e style cakewalks, which we were running into quite a bit. And as a DM, that's all you want.
5e cakewalks? Why are you having cakewalks? 5th edition is so... are you using the CR system? Which doesn't really work. In Dungeons & Dragons, monsters have a CR, which is a challenge rating. Boop, probably a dragon. No, it's a beholder. Oh, yeah. Anyway, challenge rating 13. So the idea would be that 4 level 13 characters would have a good time fighting a beholder. I run games with 6 players. So it's just not going to work for me. And then they also have my player, so that's 7. Plus they have, pets and shit at this point. So that's more bodies going on. They would dumpster a beholder right now, I think. 2 beholders, though? Now that's fucking wacky. Let's get weird. Double beholder? Can't even think of why 2 beholders would be around each other. Yeah, I can. The NPC? Well, so I was a player in a campaign with them, and then they asked me to run it instead, and my character was gone, and then they got him back.
A world that has...
So now he's there. Just recently, last few months.
Danger and reward in
8
equal
sessions
parts.
or so. 10 sessions, maybe.
CNC uses the familiar Vancian-style magic system that D&D has always used, and it works just fine. But in the Castle Keeper's Guide, Castle Keeper being CNC's name for a dungeon master, you can find a couple of intriguing magic system options. You can convert to a mana point style system, which is actually the one we're using right now. You still choose your spells, but if you need to cast healing multiple times, you have the flexibility to do that. There's also a system where instead of the traditional fire and forget, where the spell goes off automatically, you have to make a die 20 siege engine check. The siege
Faith or skill-based spellcasting. In this system, instead of spending points or using a fire and forge method, spellcaster makes a siege check to cast any of the spell they have prepared. The system definitely has the effect of powering up spellcasters somewhat, so CKs, Castle Keepers, should be prepared for that eventually. As casters raise in level, they can throw around low-level spells with impunity using this system, so if that creates an unbalance in your game, keep that in mind.
siege engine, by the way, is the basic mechanic of this game. Roll a 20, hope for high. I'll expand on it in a little bit. But anyway, that type of system where you have to roll to successfully get your spell off adds a little bit of uncertainty, a la...
All right, so I've been thinking about... I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about D&D and have some fun with you guys. How about that? And then we'll press play every once in a while, and we'll see how far I can get into this before I just want to rip my eyes out. So I've been thinking about an exertion. I don't like the... In Dungeons & Dragons, you have an exhaustion system. Let me show you. Exhaustion 5e. It'll probably give me the roll 20 compendium. That's correct. So exhaustion comes in stages. Disadvantage on ability checks. Speed is halved. So every time you do something like starving, some effects can give you exhaustion. Just being exhausted. You know how being exhausted works. I don't know if I'm crazy about how this works or anything. I think just like a cumulative negative to your rolls would feel better, but also, holy shit, I'm blown the fuck out with this white ass screen. But also, I like the idea of exertion and being able to like how do I put this? So I like being able to do stuff in real life. Sometimes you can push yourself in whatever way that means to do things. And I like the idea of having like skills or abilities that maybe you can draw on through exertion, and it would give a really good feeling to spellcasting, I think, if you were rolling for this kind of thing kind of all the time. We'll see that. It's great for survival in extreme cold. Yeah.
Dungeon crawl classics. Hell, you can even sacrifice points of constitution to help a spell go off, like you do in BCC. You can even sacrifice your own life to make sure that that spell goes off spectacularly. I love this sort of flexibility, and I think the players do as well. You can just ignore the other options and go straight Vancian, or you can experiment with something a little bit different. Either way...
Anyway, D&D offers alternatives to their spellcasting rules as well.
The right system is probably in here for you. I like that in CNC, not everyone is an expert at everything. In this game, your thief is the one that you are relying on to disable that trap. The ranger is the one you need to track that quarry. Only the bard can sway or influence a crowd. One of the things that always rubbed me the wrong way in D&D from 3rd edition on...
Only a bard can sway a crowd? They can take our lives, but they can never have our freedom! Bard, I guess? That's pretty dumb. I'm fine if there's, like, specific benefits to these things. But you should be able to try anything. You don't have a bard in your party. I made a more gradual exhaustion system and allow players to push themselves to gain exhaustion for bonuses. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I have to think about it a little bit more.
Is how easily other classes can kind of horn in on the specialties of other classes via the skill system. Because CNC has no skill system, it's a lot more difficult to do that. The fighter is allowed to try and disable a trap, for example, but faces a steep penalty of having to subtract his level from the check.
So as he levels, he has to... What? He gets worse at traps? As he levels up and gains experience? What? This sounds dumb. What do you mean no skill system? What does that even mean? How do the players declare they want to do stuff? Is it only about fighting in battles in castles and crusades? Sounds bad.
It's possible to succeed for low and mid-level challenges, but almost impossible for difficult ones. And of course, the Castle Keeper has final authority over whether a character can even try such a check. A lot of people don't care for class-based games, but if you're going to go with one, this is the way to do it. Not the way D&D has done it over its recent past, which is sort of a combination of the two, which ultimately leads to a less satisfying experience at the table.
What? I think this is a problem with not doing point buy or something. Like when you have, let me get a character sheet. Just because you said it, what if we did a bard? When you have characters or whatever, I do point buy greater than static rate, greater than roll. Point buy is the best. So I usually do something like this. So at 10 strength or whatever, like 10 is average something. So your average person has 10 strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Just 10, right? I mean, you know what your personal deficiencies are. But I like to start everybody at 6s all the way, and then give them their racial points, and like I think it's 32 more points. So anyway, the point is that if you limit the amount of points everyone has, then people specialize, and you'll be able to have these moments. Now, in D&D, what happens, instead of just like the bard not being able to persuade, like say you did have a 6 charisma, that's a -3, right? Fucking, is that just a -2? 6. I think it's a -2. Anyway, you maybe don't have fucking persuasion or whatever, and the bard has like a +10 to persuasion. I don't know. But for whatever reason, the bard can't do it. And you're the only one there that's like, hey, you guys, you gotta listen. You know, I don't know. You're trying to persuade a crowd. You could still roll in D&D with a -2 charisma and not good at persuasion or whatever, and succeed. You could roll a nat 20 here. You have a 5% chance every time you roll to roll a nat 20 in D&D. I don't know. Like, it's about having fun. If you want a crunchy situation, that's fine. You can have, survival mechanics, and you can have, really hardcore stuff going on and battles and stuff. That's cool. I like that kind of shit. But, like, your fighter can't disarm traps, or he can, but it's, like, crazy hard. I don't know, man. It's kind of weird. Like, it's a fighter. It would make sense if he was able to try. It would, like, you still need, like, trap, disarm, toolkits and stuff, rules is written. I don't know. It could be fine. Because then you're like, oh, you could do it, buddy. And then the bard who can't do that, you'd be like, okay, I give you inspiration. And then maybe the cleric's like, guidance, I pray for you. Please. You know what I mean?
A thief has a bad moment and misses his roll to detect a trap or find a secret door. But hey, no worries. In 5th edition, everyone in the party can make a perception check, and lo and behold, the fighter overshadows that thief by rolling a 20. So instead of having to find another way around or using
the fighter overshadows the thief
their wits to overcome it, they just wear the challenge down with the probability of making 5 rolls.
That's fucking crazy. So you're bad at DMing, man. You're just bad at DMing. This is a straight up skill issue. I have 29 years experience. Shut the fuck up. You're bad at this. If you can't figure out... So here's how it works, by the way. If you have so you have 5 players, every skill check is limited to 2 people. Okay? You can either help somebody or you can roll yourself. Okay? Any kind of specific skill check that you're trying to do. You can fail forward as well. You, the DM, should be able to help your players get forward in whatever story, by what their interactions are. And if they just fuck it up, they just fuck it up. It is what it is. But, like, come on. You got to have the rule of cool, man. What's fun? What's interesting? Do you want to be stuck here? I mean, you're bad at this.
This is a lot harder to do in C&C, thankfully.
C&C. Insane.
Now, unlike a lot of games that present themselves as alternatives to D&D, there's a lot of support out there for Castles and Crusades. It is an OGL game, though I believe they are
Wow, look at all those fucking transactions you can make for this. That's so cool. Damn. You get to spend $20 to $40 every time?
That license in future reprints after Wizards of the Coast attempted stab in the back in early 2023 with the whole OGL fiasco. It's also fairly simple to adapt earlier versions of D&D into this rule set. An experienced DM should actually have no problem at all importing a monster into it. C&C is also bringing back some of Gary Gygax's work that he was doing for the company before he passed. It should tell you something about C&C that Gary was very comfortable working with the Chenaults as an outlet for his material in his later years.
But Gary wasn't very good at game design. Gary is not... Oh, man. Gary had some great ideas, and they've really been fleshed out, and there's a reason it's more popular now than it has ever been. Yeah, man, Gary Gygax, had some problematic issues with him, but, he's the founder of the hobby. It's cool. I mean, in a lot of ways, he's the founder of the hobby. But, it started out a war game. It's whatever, man. Just this is a virtue signal. Looking at the basic rules for the system, you only pick 3 stats and get a +6 to rolls related to those, and that's it? What?
I myself like to view Castles and Crusades as sort of the missing link between 2nd and 3rd edition. Some of the mechanical improvements without all of the unnecessary rules bloat.
Still have fucking Thaco, dude?
It'll be familiar to RPG players.
No rules bloat.
Both old and new. And you have a large base of official Troll Lord products that can help you get started.
Oh my god, I don't even want to watch the rest of this. I just want to talk about my D&D campaign because it's so fucking cool. I just want to log into Roll20 and talk about my D&D campaign. They're about to head into the Shadowfell.
Now, one thing that I and so many others like about Troll Lord games is that they are expressly non-political.
They're not political? Oh my fucking god. Oh, you're such a whiny bitch.
They solidified this stance when one of their employees had a couple of bad days on Twitter and ended up insulting fans for, let's just say, socio-political reasons. It was Troll Lord's public response that garnered a lot of respect for the company. In it, they reminded their employees that Troll Lord has a games-only philosophy and that discussions of politics should be done elsewhere. As someone who despises the proud leftist tilt of all the Seattle area companies like Wizards of the Coast, Paizo, and Green Ronin.
The proud leftist tilt. Let me see that tweet, though, actually. He's just mad about white people?
Proud leftist tilt of all the Seattle...
Decolonizing TTRPGs means removing the focus from the majority. White, straight, cis men shouldn't be our focus. We should be focusing on bringing marginalized people into tabletop, whether through play, GMing, or employment. Our diverse group or company should be celebrated. I don't disagree with that. Like, you see exclusion of white men there, and it just means not focusing on white men. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? Why are you upset about this? We're this is a business. We're done in D&D, man. We're in it. What's wrong with Gygax? Yeah, I mean, he's, orcs are black guys, essentially, for him. You know what I mean? Like, he's a racist guy. He's a misogynist. It's whatever.
Seattle area companies like Wizards of the Coast, Paizo, and Green Ronin.
Republicans only want the right people to vote, and by right people, they mean white people. I mean, that's pretty true, though.
This was manna from heaven. No, we don't want our version of RPGs that includes a bunch of right-leaning messaging from ultra MAGA people. We just want good games that evoke Lieber, Howard, and Tolkien.
Lieber, Howard, and Tolkien. So the games are only going to evoke those if you run the games that way. You want to just keep running the same old fantasy things? I really wish there was more fantasy media. Like, I can really only get the kind of fantasy that I like and that I think other people like in my D&D campaign. It's really hard to get.
Not whatever this is.
What do you mean whatever this is? This is cool. This is a D&D superhero. That's rad.
In C&C, each class is distinct enough and fills a need so that the players will not feel cheated by their choice of character. I think I counted that at one point in 5th edition, 9 of the 12 classes had the ability to cast magic in some way.
If you get like subclasses, and sometimes the magic is like specific to them, like paladins or whatever, it's very unique. Warlocks have a unique system. I don't really care for the Sork system.
This is crazy. C&C, like many OSR games, which it is a cousin to, restores some order here. There's enough unique abilities to make each class interesting, but not so many that each class becomes way overpowered. There's not the addictive get something at every level solely to keep up the dopamine hit in CNC.
Get something at every level? What's a level up for if you don't get something? What do you mean get something every level? Yeah, man. Now I gotta show you a class. So a lot of people start their games at like level 3. Some do a level 4 as well, so they get the ASI. Cowards. I like to start at level 1, but players don't always like to do that. I like to feel real squishy, personally, as a player. I would love to play a level 1 to 20 campaign, but nobody except me is good enough at dungeon mastering, so I guess that'll never happen. It's just what it is. It just is what it is. I have to make peace with this. I don't get to play as much as I want. You get stuff every level up because it's cool. Sometimes it's the same thing over and over. ASIs? 4, 8, 12, 16, 19? Come on, dude. Those are ability score improvements to make those numbers go up. Cleansing touch? Anyway, I don't know why you would have a hard time dealing with level 20. Like, definitely D&D players or characters at level 20 are nuts. Okay? But they tell you that in the game. Like, a level 20 character is a borderline demigod. Like, you're talking at 10th level, you're like a regional fucking power if you want to be. And so, you know, maybe just your narrative doesn't have to get to 20. That's okay. Maybe we can think about that. A little conscientiousness. I don't know if my current game is going to get to level 20. In fact, I hope it doesn't. I think it would be a little too bloaty. Maybe it will, though. Who knows? Whatever the story says, they're level 13 now.
Here your milestones mean something because combat can be so deadly. And the things you get, while helpful, are not complete game changers at early levels. Fighters getting that extra +1 specialization bonus can really come in handy. Rogues getting better and better with their back attack as they advance. All in all, it's a perfect ballet between choice and balance.
Back attack? You mean like backstab?
Now, as part of the core siege engine mechanic, CNC has players rolling a die 20 and trying to beat a target number after adding some modifiers. Should sound pretty familiar, right? This game asks characters to choose 3 of the familiar 6 attributes as being primary. That's where the difference is. The other 3 attributes are, of course, termed as secondary. What this means is that the base challenge level for checks involving primary attributes, those are your strong ones.
The challenge class is a number generated by the castle keeper that represents the degree of, so it's a DC. It's a DC check. The challenge class is generated in 2 steps. The first is ascertaining the challenge base. This is determined by whether or not the associated attribute is the primary or secondary one. If the associated attribute is the primary attribute, the base 12, and the base is 12, and if the secondary attribute, the base is 18. Next, the castle keeper adds or subtracts the challenge level to the challenge class. The challenge level represents the degree of difficulty. So this is a bad system. So every time I have a check, I have to ask a player, hey, is this a primary or secondary attribute? And then if they say secondary, I'm like, okay, they have to do an 18. Dumb.
Is starting at 12.
Yeah. I like this.
The base challenge level for secondary attributes is 18, a little bit tougher. Think of this as kind of the DC 10 that you start with for an easy check in 5th edition, only here it's kind of dependent on whether you're using a primary or a secondary attribute.
A DC 10 without any modifiers is a 50% chance of success.
On top of the 12 or 18, the castle keeper will then add a challenge level based on how hard a particular task is. A fighter who has strength as one of his primaries will find those types of strength-focused tasks a lot easier, obviously. Everyone, regardless of whether it's a primary or secondary attribute check, is able to add their character's level and their actual attribute bonus to all of their rolls. Now, obviously, with a starting point of only 12, characters should succeed more than they fail, even after the castle keeper adds that challenge level to it. Not so.
This is stupid.
Checks involving a
There's a reason that this is not a popular
with 18
system.
as a starting point, they'll quickly have a target number over
charge
20
you $20 for
most
every single
checks
peripheral.
once that level is added to it, making it a lot more difficult. Now, overall, this is a good system that makes characters choose what they're really good at. Are they more physical or mentally focused? But as much as I got the system after going through it a few times, I found that having to constantly differentiate between primary and secondary, 12 and 18 on the spot, it might have bogged the game down just a little bit. And maybe this isn't the case for you, but for me, it kind of was. Fortunately, there is a variant option in the Castle Keeper's Guide.
See, told you.
When
Bogged
you
it down.
use it, all
Variant check method. An 18 plus 6 rule. This check is a quick method of letting the castle keeper know the result of a roll without having to state the attribute, primary, secondary designation. In this manner, the challenge base is always 18. Right? The challenge base is always 18. Right? The check is against primary.
Go.
Every check is an 18. Without a modifier, there's a 10% chance you succeed on an 18. Well, actually, I guess a 15 because you got to hit an 18. This guy is making want to play Pathfinder instead as an alt. I mean, you could.
checks actually have a base starting point of 18.
Why would you
For
ever?
attribute checks
Why
with
would every check be an 18? This is crazy. Don't listen. No, this is bad. This is a bad system. Poorly thought out. What the fuck is the point?
Primary ability, each player then adds, in addition to their level and attribute bonus, a flat plus 6. That's the difference between 12 and 18. See how that goes? What I found that works best through experience is having the players put their final check bonus, adding all the math together, and putting that final check bonus right on the character sheet next to the attribute. This just makes things a whole lot quicker, and I highly encourage it for anyone that might feel the same way I do.
Cool art, bro.
Well, there you go. Overall, I really do like this game. I always kind
That's
of
it.
thought CNC was just kind of that generic game that was always there, but I never really paid attention to until I actually cracked a book and found that I actually liked it. And I know this game is a 5e killer of sorts because, well, it killed 5e for my group. I think
He's still talking. It's a system for people who like bad things and don't like to lose. I guess so.
Crusades scales everything back to a simpler but not
sounds bad.
simplistic time. This might not be for those who like the Spartan nature of many OSR games, for example. But it is for those who think that rules and option bloat have just gone a little bit too far nowadays. If you're in the market for a 5e alternative, you could do a whole lot worse than Castles and Crusades by Trollord Games.
You could do worse. You could do worse. What a glowing fucking review. Anyway, I won't be playing that. That's for sure. That looks bad. Cannot find proper reviews of the system itself. Best I found was reviews of the books. Well, just the excerpts he had doesn't look fun at all. Looks bad indeed, actually. So I mean, I really like 5th edition's like malleability, and I mean, you really do not need the system to contain you. I think use the system as sort of a guideline, but I mean, really bend it. Like I fuck with backgrounds, I fuck with subclasses, I make my own subclasses, I homebrew I haven't made. I got to be honest, they haven't fought something from the monster manual or an official 5th edition like thing in maybe 6 months or something like that. I can't remember what it was. Maybe they'll run into something in the Shadowfell, but man, it's been a long fucking time since just a raw stat block has hit these guys. I don't know how you don't tinker with it. But I'm gonna boss some of your homebrew templates for Christmas ones. Hell yeah! Anyway, I love D&D. It's a great time. We're gonna play more of it, maybe online at some point.